There's something your mind does every single day that most people never stop to question. You think you're going about your life and simply seeing it as is. But what if your reality that you keep living and keep reacting to is not the full reality? What if your brain is only showing you the pieces that it has been trained to perceive? Have you ever noticed that when something becomes important to you, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere? Like for instance, if you or your partner are pregnant, all you see is babies and all the pregnant women and strollers, and you're paying attention to the baby stores and all the clothing, the outfits. Or if you're thinking of buying a house, suddenly you're noticing all the for sale signs and you're paying close attention to houses or neighborhoods. Or if you're on the market of buying a certain car, now that car seems to be appearing on every road. Has that ever happened to you? Those moments are actually not random at all, because your mind is not taking in the world objectively. It's not showing you all of reality. It's filtering, it's sorting, and it's prioritizing. And this is where something fascinating begins to happen. The parts of life that keep getting your attention are often the parts that your nervous system has already decided that it is important. So in other words, your brain is showing you the reality that has been trained to bring into your awareness, while fading thousands of other things that are quietly getting disappeared into the background. So what exactly is happening? Well, there is a system in the brain often referred to as the Reticular Activating System, or RAS for short. And in simplest terms, this system helps regulate wakefulness, alertness, attention, and what information becomes important enough to rise into your conscious awareness. It's not just one part of the mind. It's actually a part of a larger network in the brainstem connected to how awake you feel, how alert you are, what you're paying attention to, how your brain filters the endless amounts of information coming in at you every single second. Because the truth is, your mind is receiving far more information than your conscious awareness can ever process. Sounds, images, body sensations, memories, emotions, facial expressions of all the people that you're coming across with, tones of voices, possible threats in the area, or perhaps there are opportunities, new patterns that you're coming into, old patterns, signals from the environment, signals from inside your body. If all of those things entered your consciousness all at once, you would be completely overwhelmed. So what your brain does, it starts filtering, it starts sorting, it prioritizes, it decides what matters and fades away what doesn't matter. And this is where the conversation becomes much bigger than neuroscience, because what your brain decides is important is not random. It is shaped by what you repeat, what you believe, what you identify with, what you fear. What feels emotionally important to you? What feels threatening? What's familiar? What to expect? And this is one of the most important things to understand about your mind. Your brain is not only responding to the world around you, it is responding to the patterns it has already been trained to look for. So when someone says, "I always get rejected," the mind starts scanning for rejections. Not just in that particular subject, but in many different things. Or if someone says, "I may not have enough experience to take on that role, I'm not sure if I have enough knowledge." So now the mind starts collecting evidence of inadequacy. When someone believes things never work out for them, their brain becomes incredibly skilled at noticing all the obstacles, all the delays, the disappointments, not because the brain is trying to punish them, but because the brain is trying to confirm what it has learned, what is relevant. The brain loves familiarity, even when the familiar patterns are painful, even when they're limiting. Even when the familiar pattern is not even the truth of who you are. And this is why change is not always something as simple as thinking one positive thought. Because if your nervous system has spent years practicing fear, scarcity, rejection, self-doubt, unworthiness, then the mind has become trained to notice all those states. It has started rehearsing them. It has built pathways around them. And over time, those repeated patterns can begin to feel like an identity. Not just, I have fearful thought, but I am an anxious person. Not just, I failed at something, but I am someone who fails. Notice the difference. It's not someone that says, oh, I feel rejected for this one instance. No, it's I am someone that people reject. It becomes the ultimate. And once something becomes an identity, the brain begins looking for these confirmations. This is the part that most people miss. Your identity is not just who you consciously decide to be. Your identity is also a filter. It shapes what you notice. It shapes what you ignore. It shapes what feels possible, what feels safe, what feels familiar. It also shapes what your brain brings into awareness again and again. So if the deeper identity is, I'm not safe, the mind begins finding danger. If their deeper identity is, I am behind, then the mind always looks for comparison. Or if the identity is about feeling that it's not lovable, then the mind constantly finds a distance. And this is a good one. If the deeper identity says, I cannot change, I'm just set in my ways, that's who I am, then the mind finds proof that the old patterns are still there and will continue being there. And this is why so many people feel stuck. It's not because they're weak or they're broken. They're not failing because they do not want change badly enough. In many cases, their brain has simply become very efficient at finding evidence for their old self. And that is why repetition matters. Not just empty repetition, not forcing yourself to say words while your entire nervous system is rejecting them, but intentional repetition, one that's deeply connected to feelings and emotions. Repetition that is connected to feelings, to desire, to identity, to the emotional experience underneath the thing you really think you want. What do I mean by that? For example, let's say you're on the market to buy a new car, not just any car. You know exactly what you want, right? Something luxurious, powerful, elevated, something that feels like success before you even turn the engine on. Now, on the surface, it looks like the desire is the car, but is it really just a car? I mean, picture having that exact car in a place where it means nothing, small, rural town, you barely drive it, it sits in the driveway, there's no emotional charge around it, no sense of expansion, no feeling of identity attached to it, nothing. You don't drive it. Now, picture that same car in an environment that matches the feeling you were actually reaching for. The car is in a beautiful city, a certain lifestyle connected to it. Suddenly, that car is no longer just a car. It becomes a symbol. It represents significance, freedom, status, confidence, arrival. Maybe even a version of yourself that you've been imagining for years. So, in this material sense, the car may not be your deepest desire. The deeper desire is the feeling that you believe the car will give you. And this is what makes repetition emotionally meaningful, because the brain doesn't only respond to the words that you repeat, it responds to the emotional charge behind these words. It responds to what the image represents, to what the identity is underneath that desire. So now you're pairing this repetition with imagery, triggering with an emotional charge, paired with safety, a new internal experience, the kind of repetition that tells the brain that this matters. And the more consistent something is repeated, especially when it carries an emotional meaning, the more available it becomes to the mind. The brain begins to recognize it. It begins noticing it. It begins expecting it and acting from it. And over time, What once felt familiar can begin to feel natural. This is where identity shifting begins. Identity shifting is not pretending. It's not denying your past. It's not bypassing your emotions. It's not forcing confidence over pain. Identity shifting is the process of repeatedly introducing your mind and your body to a new internal pattern until that pattern becomes familiar enough to live from. Because sometimes the mind tends to return to what it knows. So the work is not only to choose a new thought, the work is to rehearse a new way of being until the nervous system no longer treats it as foreign. This is why hypnotherapy can be so powerful, because hypnosis works within the mind in a different state, in a state of focused attention, a state of inward absorption, a state where the outside world becomes less demanding and the inner world becomes more vivid. In hypnosis, the mind is not being forced. That is not what works. It is being guided. The conscious mind is less defensive when it's being guided, not forced. And your deeper mind becomes more available to imagery, to suggestion, to the repetition, and the emotional rehearsal. You're basically priming yourself for your future. You're laying out the foundation. And this matters because your subconscious patterns do not usually change through information alone. It's like reading a book with a serious message behind it. You can understand it, you can understand the concept, you can know exactly why you are the way you are, but you're still repeating the same patterns. You got the insight and it is powerful, but insight alone is not always integration. The deeper mind learns through experience, through repetition, through emotion, through imagery. More importantly, through what it feels is safe and what is rehearsed often enough to become familiar. So when you listen to a hypnotherapy recording repeatedly, you're not just doing it for relaxation. You're practicing a new internal state. You are giving the brain new evidence. You are allowing the mind to rehearse a new version of you before the outside world had fully reflected it back to you. And that is what's important, because the outside world often lags behind that inner shift. You may begin changing before anyone else notices. You may begin feeling differently before your circumstances look different. You may begin thinking differently before your behavior is fully consistent. And sometimes in that new space, the old identity will often try to pull you back. It will say, see, I told you it wouldn't work. Nothing's changed. It will look for proof of the old story. It will bring your attention back to what was familiar, not because you are failing, but because the old pattern has been practiced for such a long time. And this is why repetition is not optional. Repetition is how the pattern becomes stronger than the old one. Every time you return to the new identity, you are teaching the brain, this matters now. This is safe now. This is familiar now. This is who I am becoming. And eventually, the mind begins to look for different evidence. You begin noticing moments of courage instead of fear. You begin noticing progress instead of only imperfection. You begin noticing choice instead of limitations. You notice safety more than threat. And finally, you begin noticing your own presence instead of abandoning yourself for validation or for approval. And this is where change becomes so real. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because your perception is no longer organized around the old identity. This is the piece I want you to understand. Your brain is always filtering. So the question is, what has it been trained to filter? Has it been trained to find danger, rejection, scarcity, not enoughness? Or has it been trained to find evidence of safety, possibilities, confidence, self-worth, alignment? Because what you repeatedly focus on becomes easier to notice. So the more you focus on something, the bigger you begin to amplify it. What you repeatedly feel becomes easier to return to. What you repeatedly rehearse becomes easier to embody. What you repeatedly identify with begins to shape the way you move through this world. This does not mean you ignore reality. It does not mean you pretend hard things are not coming. It doesn't mean you bypass pain through positive thinking. No, feel the pain. Rather than self-medicating, let it run its course. Because that feeling will be the perfect reminder for you to never go back to what caused that pain in the first place. Lasting transformation is not only about calming the mind for a few minutes, it's about helping the mind discover a new way to see yourself, a new way to experience yourself, a new way to recognize what is possible for you. And that type of change doesn't happen through pressure. It happens through repetition, through conscious intention, through emotional rehearsal. Prime your mind and set your foundation through repeatedly introducing the mind to who you are becoming. Or maybe even more truthfully, who you were uncovering beneath the old emotional imprint. Because maybe the issue was never that you were not confident. Maybe your brain had been trained to notice every reason to doubt yourself. Maybe the issue was never that you were not worthy. Maybe your mind has been trained to search for evidence that you had to earn love. Or maybe the issue is never that you were incapable of change. Maybe your nervous system simply kept returning to what felt familiar. And if that is true, then change is not about becoming someone fake. It is about teaching the mind to finally recognize the part of you that was always there, just buried beneath the repetition of fear, the conditioning, and protection. And this is at the heart of reEMERG, a space where your mind can quietly become the person you are meant to be. And as this library of work continues to grow, each recording, each reflection, each moment of stillness is designed to meet you where you are and guide you into a deeper relationship with the version of you that is waiting to be lived, not through force, not through pressure, but through repetition, through awareness, and the quiet restructuring of the inner world. Because your mind is not broken. It is simply being trained. And what has been trained can be retrained. What has been repeated can be rewritten. And what has been buried beneath old patterns can begin to re-emerge. So as you move through your day, start noticing what your mind is looking for. Notice what it expects. Notice what it assumes. Notice what it keeps bringing back into focus, and gently ask yourself, is this really the reality that I want to keep rehearsing? Or is this the moment I begin training my mind to see something new? Thank you for being here. This is reEMERG, and this is where things begin to shift.